Today's chapter we're going to discuss with lecture is chapter 51, Animal Behavior. As going along with on the lecture, I go along with the book. So this is a picture on the first page of the book with a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. What are the questions do biology seek to answer in its studying animal behavior? Number one question, what event or signal that triggers the behavior? These are things that, what is the stimulus that's going to cause these behaviors or adaptations? What led to this behavior or social dynamic that made this animal do this? And then there's the second question, does experience during growth and development influences behavior? Does their growth over time or does their lifespan do this? Is it something natural that happens? Or is it something that's socially learned or just learned through their awareness as they get older and mature? And then gets to the third question, how does this behavior aid the survival and reproduction of animals? Like, what is its benefits? What is its negatives? Does this help it survive better? Does this help promote reproduction between the two? Which one does it help benefit the most? Then our fourth question, how has behavior been shaped by natural selection? And saying is like, what is it shaped? What are the effects that natural selection has done this? How is it scalpeled it to be better or made it worse? Or what are the effects due to natural selection making it the way it is and promote its behavior? Now I'm talking about discrete sensory inputs can stimulate both simple and complex behaviors. Nikindo Tindenberg identifies four questions that should be always asked about animal behavior. These four questions kind of just work with the questions, very similar questions to the last slide, such as what is the stimulus that's going to be affecting these animals in response for number one, and then number two, what are the animals experience during its growth and development over time? What is it going to deal with? And then how number three is dealing with survival and aid, and four is evolutionary history, which talks about natural selection things. Now, the behavioral ecology is just a study of ecology and evolutionary basis for the animal. So over time, what does the natural selection affect its behavior and how do these develop? Now talking about fixed action patterns. These are patterns of behavior that's fixed in a sequence that will be fixed and completely all the way through a simple stimulus. These are things that are just fixed and will happen in one's life that is not going to really change. These are unchangeable once they're started, initiated throughout completion. It's a fixed action that's going to trigger by external cues known as like a sign of stimulus and things like that. This could be such as, an initiation for sleep. It's going to go to bed. It ain't going to stop it. Or just a pattern of like even migration. That's a pattern of this because once it migrates, it's not going to stop midway through. It's migrate until it gets to a succession rate where it knows it needs to be. As we discussed in the last page about fixed action patterns, we were talking about migration. Now, migration is a long distance change in location. Animals can orientate themselves due to their positions related to like temperature, sun clock, uh, you know, whatever. But usually, like how they move themselves and can move them back to their original positionings from where they moved to is basing off the sun, the North Star, or the Earth's magnetic field. Studies have been done to figure this out. Migrations are very great things because it's usually based off a behavior for survival and natural selection. They usually do these to change and have better survival rates. Now, behavioral rhythms are one thing about behavior that's going to be talking about when a behavior is affected by the animal's circadian rhythm, a daily cycle of rest and activity. So this is just how like their daily pattern is what they're doing. So behaviors such as like migration, as we just talked about, and reproduction are linked to changing of seasons or a certain rhythm. So this is talking about like season. Notice it's autumn. That's when mating seasons are usually are. Or then no, it's not. So they can hatch their young in the spring when it's not cold and have better success and stuff. So these are just behaviors to calculate they're better for survival and offspring survival and things like that. Now, also periods of daylight and darkness are common seasonal cues. So that deals with animals that are nocturnal and live in the daytime. These are behavioral rhythms that relate to that. Now, talking about animal signs and communication and behavioral ecology, there's, a sign is a stimulus transmitted from one organism to another. You know, that's going to either be like communication, which is like the transmission and reception of signals between animals. That can be territorial things or showing, social learning and social dynamics. That's communication between two organisms that knows what's going on. biggest thing that I can compare this to is such as like a rattlesnake. It's going to rattle its tail to emanate danger that he's poisonous and he doesn't want to be messed with. So that's like a communication signal that it can take. Also, animals, as I was saying, they can communicate through visual, chemical, and tactical and auditory. Chemical can deal with pheromones and things like that, and things. And tactical is dealing with its territory, and auditory is dealing with hearing sounds, and visual is the regular eyesight, seeing things happen. Now talking about communication of the wild, that's going to deal with a lot of stuff. It's like breeding habits and behaviors and things like that. That's one thing that we can talk about here is the fruit fly courtship that follows like a three-step stimulus chain of how they breed and things like that, and how they promote stuff that like sing a song or that vibrates with their wings to promote you know reproduction with a female of a species. That's how they choose mates and things. Sometimes birds will puff up in bright colors and show their wings and their chest to, cause some things of communicating for mating. So that relates to that. Or, honeybees, they show a complex animal behavior that's a symbolic language of showing um, what is called a waggle dance, which is communicating the information of distance or direction of a food source. So it's helping them transmit communication between their species of where food is or within the environment. Now, getting to an interesting animal behavior in here is going to be talking about pheromones. Pheromones are chemical communications or taste or smells that emanate through organism to where other animals without really communicating verbally and things like that. So in the book, it shows this fish tank because fish will distribute a pheromone if it's damaged or hurt to scare other ones away to keep them away. So in the beginning, they're normal, nothing's going on. The pheromones introduced, they're moving to the bottom of the tank away from it, as they're right here. So that's an effective pheromone thing because it's teaching them like, oh, something's happening. We can't be in that area. So this relates to pheromones in smaller areas are better and more effective, such as the fish tank. But in bigger areas, forest, farther areas, it's not as much as effective, but still produces an effect. Now, talking about learning establishes such as specific links between experience and behavior. Now, innate behavior is something developed and fixed and does not vary among individuals. So that's something that you're usually born with that, it's something that's not going to really change or be varied across different animals. So that's such as sleep, that's like an innate behavior that's very prominent across a bunch of species. Now, talking about cross fostering studies, which help behaviorist ecologists identify the contribution of environments to an animal's behavior. So that's going to cross other behaviors to environmental stimuli, other animal behaviors to why they happen, and why these experiences change behaviors or teach behaviors. Which that leads to a lot of stuff of similar species and similar environments and things, or different environments in the same species. Now, learning is a modification of behavior based off experiences, so that's a big deal in part of behavior. So in that, there's imprinting, which is a type of learning. It's very high level attachment, emotional attachment stuff. It's a long distance behavioral response, which a particular individual or object that's going to really be seen an offspring to their mother and stuff after hatch or after being born into the world and realizing that's their mom, they're taking care of them and stuff. Imprinting only can occur in very specific time periods, which are known as sensitive periods. So that can be like right after you're born, and you're very immature brain is very, easy to impact. So that's why imprinting is like a huge establishment and it creates very crucial attachments and big behavior responses within this. Now talking about spatial learning and cognitive maps. Now spatial learning is the learning of your environment, of establishment, memory, of reflecting on what is around you and what is going on. So that's like, realizing where water is, realizing where food is, realizing where the danger of predators are, where your home is, your nest is, and things like that. And then that goes with cognitive maps within this relationship between this type of learning, which is teaching them the animal surroundings in a, imageal uh, representation in their mind to know where their home is and things like that. Like in the pictures above, like it shows like the wasp finding its nest in the middle of the pine cones. So like, okay, that's the point where my home is, and I know that's where my home is. And then in B is another one where The nest is moved and it's over out here and it's not in the pine cones, and it realizes it's like, okay, it's not here, but where is it? I'm going to check around my environment, and then it's on the outside. So this is creating cognitive maps between the spatial learning of knowing your area. Now moving to associative learning, that's going to be talking about when animals learn two things and put it together, like warnings, colorations of predators and areas of predators that might be. They learn not to go around that. Example used in the book is talking about a blue jay will avoid monarchs because similar butterflies gave it a bad experience and made it sick. So it will stay away from monarch butterflies due to its orange and black pattern, and it'll be like, okay, butterflies like that make me sick, so it's going to stay away from that. Which moves on to two types of associated learning. There's one that's the classical conditioning, which is a type of associative learning, which there's arbitrary stimulus, which is stimulus in the brain associated with reward or punishment. That's going to be stuff that learns that, like, oh, I'm not going to do that because this is something that happened to me before, bad, or I'm going to do that, eat this because it was a good reward. Moving on to operant conditioning, which is something that's like associated to one of its behaviors. So that's like, dogs. Like if you teach a dog sit, it will look at you, and when it sit, it's used to being taught that from a reward. So it's waiting on a reward. Or, like when you're trying to house train puppies and stuff, and then you have to give it a punishment of some sort once it pees in the house that it's not supposed to pee in the house. It's going to try to teach it to avoid peeing in the house or peeing on the rug and things like that. And that we could do to its behaviors associating with that. But there is kind of some restriction with associating learning types, which can be formed between environmental stimulation and behavior when it comes to a couple things within its environment. One more thing about animal behavior is going to be talking about cognitive and problem solving, which is a big part of learning and things. Cognitive is a thing, a process of knowing and awareness and reasoning and recollection and judgments. That's learning like associative learning in a way, but it's learning as like, oh, I know how to fix problems, or this is a good idea, this is a bad idea, or being aware of predators in an area. And then problem solving is like an activity that's cognitive, which is teaching in a strategy to overcome an obstacle. Which an example in the book, it shows this photo of a wasp or a bee learning its way to get through this puzzle, of a little bit of puzzle. So even if it switches up, like if you switch it up, it'll learn to get out still because it just realizes the little holes, the entrance, another little hole's the entrance, another little hole entrance, and it can go back through its way to figure its way out. So it's just a pattern that it learns how to problem solve. Moving on to one more thing, which is social learning. Social learning is the ability to learn through observation. We humans have schooling and stuff that teaches stuff on a board. It's kind of a way of social learning if you think about it, but it's recognized in uh, environments and ecosystems because other animals, such as the chimpanzees in this photo, will learn to use a rock as a hammer to break down seeds or nuts to eat stuff within it. That's a kind of ability that's just taught through social dynamics and being taught by other organisms. Now, there's another thing within animal behavior. It's a selection for individual survival and reproduction success. Within this, behaviors will enhance survival and reproduction success through things that are like natural selection and efficiency of feeding, such as, if one male or one other mate is better good in food and things and everything for the mate, it, you know, enables them to go make behavior to mate with that person because it has a reproduction success for the offspring as a behavior and as a relationship between the two. Or they'll be looking at mates that are stronger and things like that and have more stuff to make an offspring have better genetic variabilities and things like that to be better. Mating relationship defined as a number of distinctive mating systems, so it's different before everybody, such as the foraging and the bettering of the offspring. Getting to the end of here, there's something called sexual selection for mate choice, as we were discussing a little bit before. It's a form of natural selection, difference in reproductive success and what the mate's going to choose. So there's intersexual selection, which is members of one sex choose mates on the basis of certain traits, such as which one's more colorful, which one's more stronger, and things like that. And there's intrasexual selection, which involves competition between members of the same sex, which can be seen as like deer fighting, which is the stronger to promote females wanting to mate with them. We talked about this on the last slide, which was talking about mates being selected. So there's mate choice by females, which are females recognizing males that have better anatomy features and behaviors and things, and they'll pick them over other males. So that's looking for the stronger male, better looking male, and things like that. And there's male competition for mates, where males will fight over things like the source of interaction selection to reduce variation against other males, or being able to reproduce with the female they want compared having to compete with another male. So that's when competition such as between kangaroos, deer, and things like that will happen. So whoever the better competitor will gain access to the breeding resource.